Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today, I am talking to Danko Jones. As music lovers and fans already know, he's a real character, at least most of the time. Now, I've had the pleasure of interviewing this can rock vet more than once over the decades, and he's always been the hard rocking, fast talking, wisecracking maverick you hear in all his songs. Well, not this time. When I got the Toronto singer-guitarist on the Zoom a few weeks back to talk about his new album, Electric Sounds, I met another Danko, a thoughtful, contemplative, and serious artist who took off his party-hearty mask to talk candidly about the hardships of touring, the state of his career, and whether it's all been worth it. It's a side of Danko he doesn't show often, and one I've certainly never seen before. I hope you enjoy meeting him. Hey there, Danko Jones.
How's it going?
It's going just fine today, sir. How is it going with you?
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing a million of these, I bet.
Yeah, it's all right.
All right, sir. Well, it's a pleasure to talk to you again. It's been a lot of years.
Yeah.
And congratulations on the new album, Electric Sounds, a rock solid offering in every permutation of that phrase.
Thanks.
Um, uh, I have to say, I love the fact that the statement that you put out on this album very proudly proclaims that you can expect zero surprises.
Hmm.
Obviously, you're kind of kidding around, but that does sort of fly in the face of artists who make a very big point of trying to swing the pendulum and do the opposite every time of whatever they did the last time.
I mean, that's their trip. I mean, there's bands who, want to do that. We don't, we take a cue from the Ramones and Motorhead and Slayer, AC/DC. They stuck to the script and and they carved out a signature sound while doing it. And considering how many millions of bands were there before us and how many millions of bands are there around us, carving out a signature sound is pretty hard to do these days. So, like, that's quite a feat if you can achieve it. And I think I've heard countless times people go, "Oh, they sound like you," or "I heard a song and I knew it was you." So that's hard to achieve.
Indeed. Yeah, no, and you've put a lot of time into achieving it. But I'm guessing that over the years, you've had a bunch of people, come to you and say, "Hey, but what about if you tried this, or what about if you tried that?" And
Well, you did right off the top of this interview. You wanted us to use a different kind of title. We get that every day from everywhere, especially now with social media. Like, people are always commenting and putting their 2 cents in. But the trick is to kind of like not listen to all that and just do what you want to do.
fair enough. But I think a lot of people would say there's a fine line between consistency and having that signature sound and repeating yourself. And I'm not accusing you of doing that,
Mhm.
but it's a line that a lot of bands, fall on the wrong side of. How do
Mhm.
you keep yourself staying on the right side of it?
Well, I mean, we listen to a lot of different kinds of music, and from afar, if you aren't really well versed in the music that we play or the genre that we play, from afar it does sound very similar to all our releases. But if you go closer, the references are different, the influences are different album to album. um our cues are different, but I don't assume people will go that deep with us. So I just leave it at, yeah, we put out the same record every time, it's very similar. Leave it at that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously that's a simplistic notion because, as you say, it's very true. You can go back and listen to some of your albums that are noisier or
Mhm.
punkier
Yeah,
or the occasional stoner rock thing or this or
sure.
that or the other. So, yeah, you explore, I guess, all the corners of this
Mhm.
box that you're
Yeah.
in, right?
Mhm.
Um, Initially, I think in that same statement, you mentioned that you had thought about making this one sound a lot like Cadillac,
Mhm.
which was kind of it seems almost like a random, because it's a song from so far back.
Mhm.
Where did that idea come from? And obviously you didn't do that, but is that still something that is in a game plan for you somewhere? I'm
Well,
curious about.
Cadillac is one of the songs that, we still play to this day from our early days.
Mm,
And the reason why it gets such a good response and the reason why we still play it is because it's simple and it's catchy and it's got um like an anchoring line at the end. And that's always been, you know, how I've tried to approach songs. And it's also like a very short song. And I thought with that kind of impact, if you have, 10 or 12 of those on an album, it's impact after impact after impact. So that was initially like the approach to writing this record. And we had, I don't know, I'd say 3 or 4 songs that were kind of punchy and to the point, not necessarily facsimiles of Cadillac, but very reminiscent of or in the spirit of. And so I thought, well, that's a pretty good way to go, and it harkens back to our old sound, but not. And Guess Who's Back, the opening cut was more in that vein. I Like It was another song that made the cut that's kind of like that. And there's a couple that found their way on the cutting room floor, but yeah, there's about 3 or 4 that were floating around that were in the spirit of Cadillac.
but then it just wasn't something that sustained itself artistically in terms of.
Well, I mean, you just keep writing as you go on writing, riffs come out. You can't really control the kinds of riffs that come out.
Sure.
And eventually you're going to hit on a song that like, doesn't sound like that, and yet it's good and it should be on the album, like Good Time.
Right.
You just got to go, well, it's got to make the record.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Um, so talking about writing, I mean, are you fast? Are you, because it seems like your songs feel so effortless, when
Mhm.
you listen to them. They just seem to like as if they just, come bang, bang, bang. Is that a fair assessment of how you write?
I don't know. Like it's basically me and JC are really the ones going back and forth. JC's a really good arranger. He's a really good songwriter in that sense of arranging the songs. And, I'll come up with some riffs, maybe a melody line. For example, Good Time was something that ended up in a different place than where it started. So, I gave him the riff. I gave him, I think I gave him a melody or even some lyrics with the chorus. But I also gave him the solo. And what he did was he grafted the solo onto the verse, and that made the whole song. And it's something I wouldn't have thought of in a million years. So, yeah. So yeah, that was a really good, that was a, a great way of, a great example of the two of us going back and forth songwriting.
And that's kind of typical in terms of the way it.
Yeah. For this album. Yeah. Because, uh, Rich Knox, he moved to Prince Edward Island, our drummer, during the pandemic, and then JC moved 2 years ago to Finland. So we are a band who live in different parts of the world now. So we have to send files back and forth.
Um, and is that different? I mean, did you, when you started off, was it all just you writing solely by yourself on your own and presenting finished
No,
to the band, or is it
how we
always been
started off was in a rehearsal room. I mean, pretty much till the pandemic started. Just writing and bashing it out in a rehearsal room for weeks on end until we can kind of find, 10 to 12 songs that are good enough to record,
Hmm.
which
And
was a long, tedious process. And now that we send files back and forth, we can trim the fat at home and send it to each other when we deem it ready.
really, and so do you find that I mean, does that just improve things time wise, or do you think it makes for better songwriting?
Both. I mean,
Yeah.
time wise, yeah, it's a great time saver because you don't end up bashing out one riff for 90 minutes looking at each other going, where's this going?
Yeah.
So you do that at home,
Right.
uh, endless hours or not. And so that saves a lot of time. And yeah.
And what comes first? Is it always music first, or is it sometimes a lyric or a title or a chorus or something that you're writing to?
Very, very rarely is it a title first.
Uh-huh.
It's happened, but mainly the music, and then the lyrics and the melodies get put on top. But if
Hmm.
it's a good riff, it's a good riff, you know.
Right.
And by this time I could, I could write a riff, and I don't have it, but I know that there's a good melody there for it.
Right. I mean, I just again, do you ever run out of riffs? Because it feels like
No,
you've
no,
never.
I've got about 10 in the chamber already.
Wow. Okay. And I mean, do they just like pop into your head unbidden, or are they prompted by something? Or
Usually it's like I don't really play guitar. My guitar's over there. I don't really play guitar every day, like one of those shredder type dudes. But when I feel like I should pick it up, that's when I listen to my intuition.
okay, and that isn't necessarily based around needing songs at that point. It's just they're coming, and you better be there.
Yeah, sometimes, like for example, the European label wanted 2 songs extra before the release comes out. I don't know. So April, May, started writing again. So we just recorded 2 songs like 2 weeks ago. I don't know when or where or how it's going to come out, but that whole process started April, May, and it was just, again, me picking up that guitar and just playing.
Right. And I mean, I guess that's another sort of advantage of the fact that, you guys tend to stay in this self-created lane. It all becomes kind of a continuum, you know?
Yeah,
You're not
yeah,
always trying to react to whatever you did before, you know?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, being in a rock band, there isn't really a scene like there is in, punk rock or metal or even indie rock. You're kind of islands onto yourself, and we look out and we see another rock band over there. Um, so yeah, you're kind of in a bubble.
Hmm. Does that make you a little more I don't know, stubborn about wanting to, carry the torch for rock?
Yeah, that kind of idea I had a couple of years ago, and going maybe 10, 15 years back too. And now, like, you're asking me in 2023, and I really don't care anymore.
Why not? What happened?
It's a weight that I don't need to carry because no one asked me to,
Right.
and I don't want to carry it.
All right. So it's just carrying a torch for your own stuff as opposed to some bigger, you
Yeah,
know.
and I'm even our own stuff, like it's all gonna go away anyways, Like when Ringo Starr sang on the Grammys, everybody on Twitter was like, "Who is this old guy?" It doesn't matter if you're in the biggest band that ever was, you're gonna be forgotten eventually. So
Yeah.
I'm just here for now. And
Right.
if Electric Sounds can, you know, do really well for us, and we can have some new experiences out of it, or retread on the same ones that we found enjoyable, then that's great too. I'm just, there is this male need for legacy and to
Yes.
you know what I mean? And
Tradition. Yes.
yeah, I kind of I'm in the mindset of bucking that, and I don't really, it's such a weight to carry too.
Is
I
this
found
just a reflection of getting older, or is there something else in this, you
Could
think?
be. I mean, it could be a reflection of getting older. And as I guess one ages, they don't give a shit. They give less shits about giving a shit. So maybe, but I just don't care to carry the weight of that.
Right. Are you happy with where you're at, and not to get into legacy and all that, but
Mhm.
are you're content with your place in the music scene and what you do and what level you do it at, and
Um, yeah, well, I mean, I'm pretty proud of what we've
yeah,
achieved,
as you
but of
should be.
course, you know, happy, yes, it's all relative. I definitely want to, graduate to being a stadium band. Who wouldn't? I mean, there's levels of achievement that we've not even tried or even come close to stepping up onto. And so those will always be things that we're looking forward, looking out towards. But the difference I think now is it's not going to make me bitter if we don't get there. It's more just like the journey of being able to put out an 11th studio album after being a band for 27 years at a time when rock isn't even the third or fourth or fifth most popular form of music.
Yeah. You've always been a no bullshit kind of guy. And I've always kind of
To my detriment.
well, I was going to say, in terms of navigating an industry, never mind a world that is predominantly revolves around endless bullshit, it would seem to be, uh, difficult.
Trust me, it is. It is. It is. I mean, I'm not on social media that much anymore. I recently just stepped back. I stepped back from Facebook in 2017. And I just deleted Twitter from my phone last month. And I was going to delete Instagram, but everybody told me I should go back and just post and get out. So that's what I do. If you see a post by me, it's just like me posting and then getting the hell out. And I don't bother with reading anyone's comments or seeing anyone's likes. I just don't want any of that in my life. Find it to be a complete time waster and just endless bullshit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I totally agree with you on that. That's the only way I use social media too, is just to broadcast and never look. Were you before? I mean,
Yeah,
reading
yeah,
comments and doing all that
definitely.
stuff.
Well,
I
I
mean,
saw the positive and negatives of it. I made networking wise, I was able to meet and become friends with people I would never have
mm,
via, Instagram or Twitter or whatever. But also, yeah, it's a time waster and it'll suck you in negatively. And I
oh,
spent too much time trying to do what I thought was the right thing and stand up for what I thought was the right causes. And it was just a complete waste of time.
mm. And I mean, even the positive stuff can kind of end up being negative, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly. Exactly. I
yeah,
mean, exactly that.
yeah. So you find now that it's more productive or simpler to work outside of that, like getting all that out of your view screen and just kind
Like
of being in your bubble.
just a big exhale. Like I don't have to think about it or dwell on, someone's kind of like hateful comment or whatever.
Right, right. To go back to the album, I mean,
But then at the same time, not being able to communicate with people I've met on there and friends I've made and friends I have who I communicate only through these
Mhm.
streams now because of, we're so far apart or our lives are so busy. Sometimes social media DMs are the only way we can stay in touch, but you got to take the bad with the good.
Right. Yeah, well, fair enough, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
To go back to the album, I think I can probably safely assume this is the only record in existence that features Tyler Stewart of Bare Naked Ladies and Damian Abraham from Fucked Up on the same record.
Yeah.
Um, that's Damian's on Get High, right?
Damien's all over the album. He's
Is he?
on,
Okay.
yeah, he does gang vocals on Good Time. He's on Stiff Competition. He does a featured vocal on Get High, and that's going to be the next single. And the video's done, and the video's hilarious. And he's like one of my best friends, so I'm so glad that he's on our record.
Yeah, for sure. And where is Tyler? Is he the Brit voice on?
Yeah. Yeah. So we were in the studio and we needed a voice other than mine. I can't ask myself a question and answer it on the same track. It'd just be so, it would be, it wouldn't have any impact. So we were kind of wondering who, and Eric Ratz, the producer, he produced the Bare Naked Ladies before and does. And he goes, how about Tyler? And I was like, well, Tyler, we've known Tyler for like, I don't know. I've known Tyler since the 90s. So, yeah, he came down and he's such a great vibe and a really funny guy. And apparently he has a sketch comedy background. So he was able to do impressions. So he came into the studio and he goes, what region do you want? Like, what region accent do you want? So that was great.
For sure. I'm glad you brought up Eric Ross. I wanted to ask you about you. This is what your half dozenth time, I think, that you've worked with him over the decades.
Yeah, he's done 4 full albums, but then he also, you know, produced our Bounce
Right.
song that Canada only knows us about for. So yeah, so he's factored in quite a lot in our history.
What is it about you that, well, about him that keeps you coming back to work with him?
Well, we worked with Eric in 1999 for the first time, and then we didn't work with him until 2015. And so we watched each other, and then one night JC bumped into him and they hung out and they got along really well and kind of like, why aren't we working together kind of thing. So when the next album, time to make the next album came up, his name came up. We sat down for lunch, had a great meeting with him. He's, he's just an old rocker, and he comes from the same area as I do. Like we have like a same vibe about each other. I know Eric, I know that guy, you know what I mean? So it's easy to get along in the studio. It's easy.
And is that quality as important or maybe even more important
More
than
important.
technical?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Working with producers, you have to be able to get along with all kinds of personalities, and that it's the music industry and the personalities in there, you have to really be able to get along with personalities. Some are just out of control, and you have to be able to, wield in that world. So yeah, like I've always found like the producers we've worked with, like whether it's Eric Ratz or Garth Richardson or Nick Raskulinecz, like, you know, they're all amazing hangs. Like that's the one thing I take out, I leave from the experience is like, it was great hanging out with that guy, and I would hang out with him again
Right.
for prolonged periods of time. And it's always a good hang. Garth was so much fun to hang out with, and we became good friends, Nick Raskulinecz, same thing.
Is that kind of the reason why that you've now been able to have the same drummer for a decade now, as opposed to the sort of, revolving door you had for?
Well, yes and no. Yes, Rich is a really great personality, easygoing, and on the same page as us. But that's not really also, that's not the only reason. He's also the best drummer we've ever had. So, it took X amount of drummers to like hit all cherries, get the jackpot. So it's good.
What for you is a great drummer? What makes him the best drummer you've ever had?
He's pretty solid. I mean, his timing is amazing. His ability to do stuff that I can't talk bad, but there's other drummers who couldn't do certain things on older albums. So his look, it's like seamless. He just adds, and then there's the power, and there's the, his metronome's great. Everything's great.
Okay. And I guess, well, obviously now you're going to be taking this album, getting back out in the bus
Yeah.
forever. Um,
I guess
are
so.
you? I know you enjoy the, performing. Obviously, it's a huge part of, what you
Mm-hmm.
do and who you are.
Yeah.
Is the rest of it?
Sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that just because of the endless boredom and repetition, and what sucks about it?
It's yeah, and time away from home, and it sucks. But the shows are like, then you get your dopamine hit when you hit the stage.
Right, right. I mean, obviously you've been doing this for, a quarter of a century now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
is there any way to improve that improve that situation to make it somehow less of a grind that would work?
Well, I mean, if our status increased greatly, that would make touring easier in terms of, expenditures and making life a little easier. Sure.
Right.
But I mean, like I said, we've never gone gold. So it hasn't afforded us the luxury of touring in an easier way.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you're gonna have
It's
to
a
forgive.
catch 22, because we've been doing this for so long. This is all we know how to do, at least me.
Right.
And it takes up all of our time. And that means this is how we pay the rent, you
Right.
know?
It's your
So it's a
job.
train I
It's your
can't get off of.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a case of be careful what you wish for.
Wow. Okay. I mean, you got to forgive me. You seem a bit less enthusiastic than you have been when we've talked in the past.
Yeah. Well, I just came home after 3 months of touring. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I've been away for 3 months. I'm exhausted.
And that's, I mean, that's obviously, I'm guessing back in the old days, 3 months would have been nothing to you, and now it's
Yeah. I wouldn't say nothing,
no, but
but I wouldn't say nothing, but
sure.
yeah, I know what you mean. It would have been a lot smoother, but 27 years on, there's a lot more, that needs to be tended to.
Right. And these are things you never think of, right? When you're a young man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, catch 22, man. Like it's basically, yeah, okay, I'll give you this, but then this is what I want for it.
Right. And
It's a deal with the devil. It is a deal with the devil.
has it been worth it?
Ask me next time we talk.
All right, sir. Listen, I could talk to you for another half hour, but I know you have a lot of other people to talk to today, and I've already wasted enough of your precious
It's
time.
okay. No, it was fun talking to you.
All right. Well, listen, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for the honest answers. I really appreciate that. Always
Yeah.
have with you. And thanks for another great album, and then we'll see you next time you're crossing Canada.
All right. Thanks a
All
lot,
right.
man. Look forward to talking to you again.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.